Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we have a problem.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue.
What you're seeing here is a mirage.
What's going on, everyone? It's Jaron from Jeranism. I'm back with another live video for you tonight. Thank you for joining me. I do appreciate it. Welcome to today's show. Shout out to everyone in the chat, of course. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And, of course, a huge shout out to my patrons. They make all this channel possible and everything I do possible. So to join them, which is quite easy to do, you can just head over to patreon.com/Jeranism and, donate $5, $1. $1.75, I don't know, $1.91. Who knows? Whatever you want, whatever you feel like. Or you can choose to donate $0, which a lot of people do, and that's fine. I still present these videos. I hope you enjoy them. But a big thank you to everyone who does support what they like so it doesn't go away. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Tonight we're going to be reading an article and discussing it, commenting on it. The title of this video, 7 Easy Ways You Can Tell for Yourself That the Moon Landing Really Never Happened. The article we're going to be reading is from Popular Science, and it is actually titled 7 Easy Ways You Can Tell for Yourself That the Moon Landing Really Happened. I've changed it, a little Jeranism twist, if you will, to 7 easy ways that you can tell for yourself that the moon landing really never happened. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I hope you guys are ready. I hope you guys are having a great one. Shout out to everyone. Karen B. Shout out to Karen B in the chat. Lumberjack, Stuart Green, thank you guys for joining me. Jennifer Spangler. Very happy to see that Jeranism is on. Appreciate that. Kill the Bank. Hello. Josh from Oregon, always in the house. Appreciate the support as always. Ted Sommer, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate that. And everyone else in the chat. If I missed your name, it's because I can't scroll fast enough up. But yeah, glad you guys are here. And it's a good time to get started. And what we want to start with is good old space news. Space news. I don't have a sound effect for that yet, but maybe I'll add one so that we can have space news, which will be really fun. In space news today, I'm not sure if you saw this, but pretty funny that, India tried to land on the moon today, failed. So not sure if you guys got a chance to see that. Pretty funny video if you, watch it. Again, as with my videos, all the links to all the things that I discuss, the videos I show, all that will be in the description following the live stream. Give it a few minutes. It has to, of course, upload and render and all that processing, whatever else they do. Make sure that I don't say anything wrong. Make sure I don't say the double F word, things like that. So once they do that and they put the video up, then I go in and I add all the, links. So yeah, so this is the final shot that they had. You got everybody here just looking around. What's going on? What happened? But again, they couldn't land their craft at the South Pole of the moon. Now, do remember, there was no humans in it. It's just a craft that they sent to the moon to land there. But the United States did it 50 years ago. Quite easily. They even had people in the craft. In fact, they got there, they got out, they put out all kinds of test equipment that send back data to the Earth. Seismographs and solar arrays and retroreflectors, and they played golf and they drove around in a moon buggy and did jumps and twists and turns, all that fun stuff in 1969 with ridiculous technology. And we're going to look at something funny in that regard as well. But yeah, if you watch this, this is the final screen. They just got to this point and said, we don't have any more data. And then these guys congratulated themselves, and everybody was sad because India did not pull it off, much like Israel tried to do, a few months back, also failed. So, this stuff just goes on and on. People still want to believe it. And again, here's the thing. I say it all the time. If you want to believe this stuff, you can go right ahead. You shouldn't be watching this video so much if you want to believe in this stuff, because I certainly don't believe it. And on this channel, what I do is I give you my opinion of these events, and if you don't want to watch it, you don't have to be here. That's something that I always have to mention, because I'm afraid people think this is like mandatory viewing or something, because they love to get on here and give me thumbs down and lace the comments with their nonsense. And if that's you, what are you doing here? That's my question. So yeah, that's the number one item on space news today, is that these guys could not complete the mission. even though the United States, they sent people there easily 50 years ago. But India, a fail. In related news, I don't know if you saw this. It's hilarious. Hewlett-Packard, and this is on the Hewlett-Packard website here, is building a new supercomputer to support future human mission to the moon, because they did it on Game Boy level technology in 1969, but today you need the supercomputer because technology has grown and things have gotten easier and cheaper. So now you need a supercomputer to do what you did so easily with some nonsense equipment back 50 years ago. So this is August 22nd, a press release basically saying that a new supercomputer at NASA's Ames Research Center will run modeling and simulation workloads for the lunar landings. Thank you very much, HP, for providing this. And this is what I mean when I say that NASA is a jobs program. It just creates jobs for other companies, things for other companies to do and to try and get better and to try to improve. That's NASA's goal. It's actually not to physically go anywhere. It's all a ruse. Again, believe it if you want. I'm somebody who simply does not. So if we want to watch something funny, which I do, I always enjoy watching something funny. Let's watch this. And this is from a YouTuber named Mountain Bear. If you ever watch Owen Benjamin, then you've definitely already seen this video. Owen Benjamin's brought it up a few times. It's set to South Park animations, but includes, Don Pettit talking and then Gene Kranz, and we'll actually look at a quote by Gene Kranz here in a second. But it also then has Neil Armstrong talking about the kind of technology that got them to the moon 50 years ago. And then when you weigh that in with the space news from today that we just talked about, that HP needs to build a supercomputer for them to get there, India crashing, all this fun stuff, it becomes quite comical. Enjoy this. It's pretty funny.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
Again, that was Don Pettit, who I think Owen Benjamin said it best the other day, who sounds like he got kicked in the head by a donkey, which is very true. Mr. Crumb sends a super chat, says, "Hi, Jaron, I'm a patron. Can't wait to see you in Dallas. Logos rising, not satellites." So it couldn't be a more true statement than that. Thank you very much, Mr. Crumb, for that super chat. Of course, if you want to send a super chat, I super appreciate it. And I will read all those throughout the live stream. So thank you very much for sending those. Let's continue. We're now going to listen to Neil Armstrong tell us about the technology. It's just pretty funny to hear this guy talk and to see it animated South Park style. Here we go.
Apollo computer had 32K of fixed memory and 2K of erasable. That was it. No screen, no sound, no icons, no nothing. Just and the keyboard just had it had 0 through 10, read, clear, and enter. No graphics, no screen, no. On its best days, it couldn't get to 1 megahertz.
Wow.
So it was slow and weak, but it got us there.
But it got us there. Yeah, it got you there, but now we need HP to build a brand new supercomputer to send to Ames Research Center so that we can get there again 50 years later. If this makes sense to anyone, good luck in your future endeavors. It doesn't make sense to me. That's why I make these videos. Thank you very much for the super chat from Exaleraden1. Probably butchered that. Exaleraden, maybe. I don't know. Exaleraden7. No, 1. I don't know, something like that. Thank you very much for the super chat. Let's continue. We now have Gene Kranz.
I haven't seen anything that indicates the telemetry data is even in existence. And as I said, even if we had it, we don't have the machines to play it back.
Right. We've been unable to track it down. I mean, we don't know where this telemetry data ended up, and we don't know what path it may have taken. So unfortunately, I'm afraid I can't really give you much of a clue as to where this data ended up and whether it still exists or not.
NASA admitted that it had lost the original footage of man's first steps on the moon.
The most heralded, most famous accomplishment of mankind, of humans, the landing on the moon. NASA lost everything. They're claiming there's nothing in their archives, nothing in storage, nothing in a cardboard box someplace that has anything to do with the Apollo missions. It's all gone.
And what people fail to realize, and I have to always bring this up, by the way, subscribe to unauthorized.tv, support Owen Benjamin and Vox Day and the other guys there. That would be appreciated by them, I'm sure. So anyway, let's talk about it a little bit. One thing I used to believe, and I no longer believe, I used to think like eventually this would come out, eventually it would be admitted that we didn't go to the moon. And now I've changed my perspective on that. I now realize that they can never admit. NASA or the American government can never admit that we didn't go to the moon. There's too many implications. There's too much that relies on this whole idea that, conspiracies can never be kept under wraps. All lies would get out, that you could never hold that kind of information, that you have too many people that know, even though, barely anybody needed to know what was going on. And let's look at that real quick, just what I'm talking about there. We're going to be looking at a quote by Gene Kranz, who was in that video. Gene Kranz said in his book, Failure is Not an Option, he said, in the late 1960s, our simulation technology had progressed to the point where it became virtually impossible to separate the training from actual missions. These simulations became full dress rehearsals for the missions down to the smallest detail. The simulation tested out the crew and controllers' responses to normal and emergency conditions. It checked out the exact flight plan, mission rules, and procedures that the crew and controllers would use for a later flight. In an interview, he later said, the simulations were so real that no controller could discern the difference between the training and the real mission. So this just puts to bed all the nonsense of people saying, there's too many people that would have to be involved, and when they would admit it, they would come out as it was being faked. No, barely anybody needed to know, because everyone sitting at those controller stations, everyone sitting at the mission control could have been fed just false data, basically simulation data. Very easy, right? When the entire universe, and I've talked about this numerous times, is simply a massive supercomputer. You can send satellites into it, you can send probes, you can go to asteroids, whatever you want. You're doing it in a simulated environment and just passing that off as real, and the people sitting at the controller stations would have no clue, especially because there's no video cameras on any of this stuff. Go back and look at the India landing today. You're telling me we don't have the technology to put a video camera on the craft as it's heading towards the moon, as it's falling down towards the moon? You can't have a live video feed? What year is this? What year is this? Give me a frickin' break. It's 2019. We're, hop, skip, and a jump away from 2020. And you're telling me with all the GoPros and the cheap, inexpensive, you can get the best GoPro for $1,000. So maybe it's going to cost them $500,000 to make sure you set up the data relay. Maybe it's going to cost $1 million. Who knows? NASA gets $56 million a day. You don't think that they can afford that? No, I know we're talking about India, but NASA doesn't do it either. So it doesn't matter who we're talking about. It's the same story. It's the same thing. They just have these graphics up on the screen. In fact, we can go back and actually look at that. If I head back over here, this is basically what these people were looking at. Is this screen. How hard is this to make? Well, this is how far it is in horizontal velocity. This is vertical velocity. This is downrange. It's all simulation data. None of the people at the computers would have any idea. And even if you go back and try and find the views, let me see if I can find one. It might take me a second. Didn't have this set up. But if you look at what these guys are actually looking at on the screens, it's just simulated data. Here we go. None of it is actual video. You can see over here. You can see here. This is a little craft here. You got this little graph. Everything these people are looking at is just graphs and data. Nothing coming across that is in any way real. But again, you can believe it's real. Sure, go right ahead. A lot of people do. You can join them if you want. I just think when it comes down to something that we can't see ourselves, that we can't verify, that nobody can verify, I need a lot more proof to show me that something is real than this simulated data. But none of these people do, because they've been involved. It's enough for them. It's not enough for me. It's that simple. Just because you can do these kind of data animations on a screen doesn't mean anything to me. Ted Sommer, thank you very much for the super chat. Says, love your videos, Jaron. Can't wait to meet you in Dallas. Last name is pronounced like the season. Summer. Damn it. Ted Sommer. Now I got it right. Should have read the super chat before I read your name, and I would have had it right. Peace to you as well, Ted, and it should be fun. If you're not going to Dallas already, what's wrong with you? You can check out Owen Benjamin. He's going to be there doing a live performance, a little comedy show, and then all the speakers. Go to fe2019.com. Get your tickets, and I will see you there. Also, coming up the end of this month, I will be in Amsterdam. Can you believe it? I can't. I leave the 25th, the Amsterdam conference, and you can go to feconvention.com to get tickets, very cheap tickets to this event if you're in that area, the 27th, 28th, and 29th, with the main day, the day I'll be speaking, the 28th. Then the 29th, we'll be doing some work with the Globe Light Tour, and all that information is on that website. So hope to see everybody there, and if not, I'm going to be doing a lot of live streaming from there if possible. I don't know what the regulations or rules or I don't know how to do it, basically, being in another country, but I'll try to do the best I can to bring you some behind-the-scenes footage. So if you can't be in Amsterdam, just check out my channel as always. Stay tuned. It should be fun. But anyway, that's basically what I wanted to talk about as far as this nonsense goes. And again, we just go back to that Gene Kranz, and just to let people know this is what is going on with these guys behind the controllers. Again, the bottom quote is probably the most important one. The simulations were so real that no controller could discern the difference between the training and the real mission. That's enough for me. But again, if you want to believe it's all real, that's fine. There's lots of videos out there that will tell you it's real. And the reason why is because it's kind of like a tennis match, and as we get close to reading this article, if I can pull this back up, of 7 easy ways you can tell for yourself that the moon landing really never happened. You have to realize that this is like a volley in tennis, back and forth. Any serve that the hoaxers, if you want to call them that, serves up, well, of course, the space community is going to have a return. They have to. They can't ever say, oh, you're right, we got us. No. So, of course, they're going to have an answer for everything, whether it's the light on the moon, whether it's the shadows, whether it's, you name it. Whether the thing could survive, how the temperatures, how would you be able to do it, what suits did they have on, how did they protect themselves from micrometeoroids, how did they get through the Van Allen belts, how come they weren't blasted by radiation, they didn't have 6 feet of concrete walls around them, how did they go about doing this? Anything you say, they'll just return the serve, and you need to expect that. So it comes down to you yourself reading the answers and deciding for yourself. And if you're somebody who decides that, I like the answers are good enough, then that's fine. Then more power to you. I can't help you at all. But, you just have to realize that it's one of those things, the moon landing, it's like the discovery of America by Christopher Columbus or Cristobal Colon, whatever you want to call him. It's something that continues to be taught in schools. We have a Columbus Day. It will continue to go on and on. Slowly, yeah, there's some chipping away. You get the Native American community who have despised Columbus, obviously, for a good reason. The guy's a murderer. The guy's a savage, an idiot, all those things. He never stepped foot in America. He never set foot in the United States of America, yet he discovered America. So it's the same thing. Nobody's ever set foot on the moon, but we've been to the moon. Do you see the correlation there? Do you see how this works? It's just going to be that, and you just need to realize that and, come to your own conclusions. Make up your own mind. You can be sheep if you want and just simply believe these things, even though it makes no sense with the timeline 50 years ago, what we can't do today. And again, we've been telling you that they won't go to the moon in 2024. I'll tell you that now. But they keep setting it out so that by the time that comes around, there'll be so much new stuff going on. What am I going to be able to say? Oh, remember in 2019 when I told you they wouldn't? It will just be, well, something happened. They're behind on the mission. It's going to be this. It's going to be, and it will be pushed out. And the next president will come along and say, no, we don't need to go back to the moon. We already been there. We already done that. Let's go to Mars. And then it will be a whole another 4 years of figuring out how we're going to go to Mars. And are we going to build a colony? And is Elon Musk going to be the head of it? And are we going to grow potatoes? That kind of thing. Thank you very much, Flat Out Faith. Flattoberfest, right, October 20th, Greenville, South Carolina. See you at the Firmament Blessings. Thank you for that super chat. Daniel Kakao says, Simon Dan loves your videos. Yeah, a lot of those guys love to use my footage and just, it's very easy to be a flat earth debunker, if you want to call them that. It'd be the easiest job in the world. I can't imagine something easier than just sitting around and saying that the earth is a ball. I'll just read scientific papers and I'll just read articles like the one I'm about to read and just believe in it all. So it's easy. Enjoy yourselves if that's what you want to do. It's not for me. So again, you just have to realize that these things are always going to come back. They're always going to be protected. And of course, right? I mean, the scientific community is always going to come back and back up anything. They have to. You know, it's just what they have to do to keep the scientific enterprise going, to get people to continue believing science is God. They need to keep this stuff, so expect it. So, like I said, we're going to be reading an article from Popular Science. I'm going to bring it up right now if I can do this correctly. There we go. So, Popular Science, this article was from December 10th, 2018. And the title of the article is 7 Easy Ways You Can Tell for Yourself That the Moon Landing Really Happened. Now, let's pay attention to the title here. We're going to break this down kind of piece by piece. We're going to go through each one of these 7 steps and realize the preposterousness. Is that a word? It is now. Of this claim. Now remember, this is 7 easy ways you can tell for yourself that the moon landing really happened. December 10th, 2018 by Neil V. Patel. There you've got Neil Armstrong. No, Buzz Aldrin. I don't know who that's supposed to be. One of those characters. Been there, done that. NASA. Been there, done that. All right. Let's start reading, shall we? Boston Celtics point guard Kyrie Irving recently closed the book on his dalliance with promoting flat earthism. Earth is still round, by the way. you have to throw that in there. You have to throw that in there. If you're ever writing an article about flat Earth, you need to remind people that the Earth is a sphere. In case they forgot, in case they missed the indoctrination, in case they missed every video and every logo and every start of every movie for all time that has the zoom out of the Earth and the zoom into the globe, and reminding people this movie takes place on this globe. The universal logo rolling around, they have to remind you constantly. And of course, we've known it for 2,000 years, all that bullshit. All right. But perhaps he unwittingly started a new and unwelcome trend. It's unwelcomed. Okay, it's an unwelcome trend. On the Ringer's Winging It podcast, Golden State Warriors star Steph Curry, apropos of nothing, seemingly came out as a moon landing truther, wantonly asking his fellow basketball players around the 46-46 mark, "We ever been to the moon?" Asked if he really didn't think humans landed on the moon, the 2-time MVP doubled down and made his position clear. It's totally possible Curry and company were just goofing off. Well, they weren't. I mean, anybody who's heard that podcast clearly knows that. Now, he had to backtrack, of course. This is part of the thing. You can't be an NBA player. You can't make $26 million a year and say that you don't think we went to the moon. You think they're going to allow that? No. They will quickly make you go on Jimmy Kimmel, just like Shaq did. They will make you come out. You even have to wear moon shoes to the NBA All-Star game, and you have to auction them off to support STEM research. This is what... And the STEM industry, this is what happens if you dare say that you don't think you think maybe America has lied to the public. Ridiculous. Asked if he was joking, the flames are already stoked. More people are bound to come out of the woodwork and say that they too believe the moon landings were faked. Anyone who ever spent any time on the internet should know that these gentlemen are far from alone in questioning the veracity of human spaceflight. Correct. Okay, so far we kind of agree with this article. But the evidence that we went to the moon exists, and it's not all that complicated to understand. Here are 7 ways to prove humans have been to the moon and back. Okay? And again, title of this article is 7 ways you can tell for yourself that the moon landing really happened. All right, let's start with number 1. We have a piece of moon here to study. Perhaps the most critical piece of evidence that tells us humans have been to the moon and back is the fact that we brought back samples to the moon to Earth. And they are very clearly unlike what we would find on our own planet. Throughout 6 different Apollo missions, NASA astronauts brought back 842 pounds of moon rocks for scientists to study, the oldest of which are 4.5 billion years old. Let me just tell you this. If you think that we can date rocks, get out. Get out. It's just so far-fetched and nonsense. I don't care if you believe in radiometric dating. It's all a system that's been set up, and if you just believe it, good for you. Okay, just because I come up with a system and I can date one rock and I date another rock doesn't mean that those dates are correct. And the fact that it says the oldest are 4.5 billion years old, 200 million years older than the Earth's oldest rocks. Give me a break. Give me a freaking break. Analysis and experiments have definitely shown over and over that these aren't geological materials you can just collect on the fly from Earth. They're almost completely void of volatiles, chemical elements and compounds with low boiling points found in terrestrial crusts and atmosphere like nitrogen, carbon dioxide, water, etc., even though they say water was found on the moon. just 4 inches deep or something, right? But no, not these rocks, no. As well as hydrated materials. These rocks simply do not exist on the modern day Earth. Just such nonsense. Now we can just go one easy place and just search moon rock Dutch, and you can see moon rock given to Holland by Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin turned out to be a fake. Here it is, the Dutch moon rock turned out to be a fake. Now, of course, you have to remember they have to return the serve somehow, right? They have to. So, of course, you're going to find Quora. And, you know, Quora is such a joke of a site, too. Just think about that whenever anybody asks a question about, well, does this exist? You have the mainstream people all just coming and just giving an answer, and people consider that credible, you know? So, of course, you have people asking, was the moon rock given to Holland? Was it fake? Now, here's what we see. Welcome to Quora. Let's take this one piece at a time. The rock in question wasn't from the moon. Yeah, no shit. That's what we're saying. How about this one? Moon hoax debunked. You know, this is a great website, right? If you want to return the volley. In a nutshell, because it's not a NASA moon rock. No shit. Everything points to a mistake or to a hoax orchestrated by 2 Dutch artists in 2006. Sure it does. Again, this is just what you need to expect. But again, if your friend came to your house and said, I've got some gold for you, and you said, sure, I'll take some, and he gives you a rock of gold, and you go have it tested, and it turns out to be a fake, are you going to believe that the other rocks he has are gold? No, you're not. Just fake. It's petrified wood. It's nonsense. It's encapsulated in some sort of plastic, and these guys broke it open and tested it, and it turned out to be petrified wood. And on the plaque, it says from Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Mike Collins. Again, do you believe what you want? You know, believe what you want. Of course, according to this site at The Sun, says Apollo 11 moon landing impossible to fake as scientists debunk conspiracies using space rocks. It says the lunar landing conspiracy theorists say the Apollo missions were fake, but experts say rocks collected from the moon debunk those theories. Of course, what else are they going to say? Of course. Scientists now argue it would be too difficult to produce fake moon rocks as part of a global hoax. Can you imagine? Can you imagine somebody saying that? You can't produce these rocks in a lab? Come on. I love this one. Official images from 1969 clearly show astronaut Buzz Aldrin on the surface of the moon. No, it was proven. I had no idea. Didn't know these rocks clearly show. Or I didn't know these photos clearly show astronaut Buzz Aldrin on the surface of the moon. Here's some pictures of these moon rocks, and later we're going to talk about the reflectivity of these rocks. And if you looked at it, they're not even reflective. It's just, you can see reflections in this metal pan, but the rocks are fine. They're just dull rocks. Ever since the Apollo 11 moon landing in 1969, which celebrates its 50th anniversary today, skeptics have claimed it was all a con. And think about that. Something that happened so long ago, and it continues to persist that people say it was fake. You don't think it would have been proven by now by just going back numerous times? No, of course not. One person asked, well, could it be fake? And he says, such fakery would simply be too costly and difficult. What? Any attempt to make moon rocks in a laboratory would be a monumental failure. Would it? And likely cost more money than it took NASA to get to the moon and back. It would cost more than $200 billion. Thank you, Professor Ireland. That is some nonsense. He went on to say the lunar soil is like nothing we've ever seen on Earth. That it is the result of eons of bombardment from the surface of the moon. I don't know why it says the rockets have compositions that are unique to the moon. I think he means rocks. And then they go on to talk about maybe there was unmanned rockets that went to the moon. You know, there's a lot of theories out there. If you go to always.com, you can find a lot of that same stuff. For me, I don't think they've had any unmanned craft that's gone to the moon. But again, believe what you want. Believe in the moon rocks if you want. You know, that's up to you. This graphic is pretty funny here. It says moon landing conspiracy theory explanations. Number 1, no visible stars in the pictures. The explanation, it was a lunar morning. What? What the hell does that mean? And the astronauts were using cameras with high shutter speeds which wouldn't pick up stars. Yeah, but what about the fact that these astronauts didn't see them with their own eyes, let alone the photographs? Yeah, we know you've got an excuse about aperture. It's the same excuse we hear all the time. The aperture's open. It's the focal length. It's just bullshit. Bullshit. You're telling me you didn't take another camera that would be, able to take pictures of the stars? It's just one little setting. It's not that difficult. Of course, no. We had all the cameras were preset. The astronauts couldn't change them, and this is why there's no star in any photo. And even if you play with the contrast or you try and get some background noise out, there's no stars in any of the photos from the moon. There just isn't. The moon lander didn't make a crater explanation. It landed on rock, and the thrust and gravitational pull would not have been strong enough. Who wrote this article? What? The moon lander didn't make a crater because it landed on rock. Well, we've seen that their feet make prints and everything. Okay. And the thrust and gravitational pull would not have been strong enough. Pretty sure the thrust would be plenty strong. Shadows fall in different directions, as if in a studio setting. Explanation: each object still has only one shadow, and a low sun and uneven surface can distort shadow angles. Yeah, I used to be a big proponent of that. I made a mistake, 2 years ago, bringing up a moon image and saying, here, these shadows don't work, and then being shown that they could work. Again, at this point, I now realize, as other people should, that if NASA was going to fake those images, then they would use a single light source. And we'll go through that in a little bit, and I'll show you some of that. Let's see here what else I was going to show in this. Just a picture of these guys. And this is just, you can see the backdrop. You can see where this ends and these fake mountains begin. Again, if you turn down the contrast on these pictures, you'll never see any stars in space at all. But you can create graphics like this, which make it very simple. Well, you launch the craft, and it goes around the ball Earth, and then you send it off, and then it turns around here, and it goes here, and it lands on the moon while this other craft goes around. Then it connects and comes right back and lands in the ocean. Easy. Very easy for those who want to believe and just say, yeah, well, this is proof, Jaron. Here it is right here. But again, it's not proof. And I don't know how to go back in photos. So, let's see. Let's go. I don't know how to go backwards. Anyway. Wait, close this, maybe? There we go. You got somebody looking at some moon dust, if you want to believe that. We saw the rocks, and of course, old Buzz. Have another drink, Buzz. Okay, so, we can go a little bit further down. We saw this graphic and some nonsense, and then you can watch this. Again, all of this links will be in the description. Okay. You can also look at radiometric dating if you really want to get into it. It's just utter nonsense. Again, you can believe it if you want, but they have to have these answers. They have to have these monumental timescales. They have to tell you that it's been billions of years, and that's how old the Earth is, and that we can date rocks. Give me a frickin' break. Okay? This is the method they use, of course, radiocarbon dating. No, they use, sorry, not radiocarbon dating. Radiometric dating, right? Which is the title of this Wikipedia. But again, if you want to believe that, if you want to think that they can just bring some rocks back and they can test them and say, oh, this is, 4.5 billion years, and the oldest rocks we can find on Earth are 4.3 billion years. Remember, you can go back and look at all the details about Wernher von Braun and the fact that he went to Antarctica to find these moon rocks before they went to the moon. Again, did they find 846 pounds? I don't know. I think it's more likely that they were created. But again, to each their own, you can believe what you want. Let's go back to the article. Took a little too long on number 1. Let's continue on. One of the funnier things I've ever seen. You can see the landing sites for yourself, which, real quick, let's just remember we have a piece of the moon here to study, and this is how you can tell for yourself that the moon landing really happened, because some guys say that there's moon rocks that none of us have ever seen. Put it this way. Nobody listening to this show right now, and nobody who will listen to it in the coming days, has ever seen a moon rock, has ever studied one, has ever looked into it at all. Never seen one. Okay? Anyway, you can see the landing sites for yourself. What? Where can you see that? Even today, you can still spot the landing sites for the Apollo missions on the surface of the moon. Images collected by NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and published in 2011 sharply illustrate. Notice the word sharply. Okay? We're going to look at these images right now. The touchdown points of the Apollo 12, 14, and 17 lunar landers as astronauts made their way to the ground, as well as paths taken by those crews as they walked and rode around the surface of the moon. A year later, NASA went on to publish other LRO images of the Apollo 11 site. Let's listen to this guy real quick. This is a funny video. Noah Petro explains the new LRO images.
My name is Noah Petro. I'm a research scientist here at the Goddard Space Flight Center, and I'm also on the LRO Project Science team. We have some of the most stunning images of the lunar surface that I've ever
Yeah, what are you talking about? These ones? Well, don't show these if you're not talking about this.
Seen. These are pictures of the Apollo 17, Apollo 14, and Apollo 12 landing sites, giving us the clearest view of where the
Look at these images. Look at these little pixel changes. This little nonsense.
Astronauts went, where they sampled, where they conducted scientific experiments on the
astronaut footprints. Footprints. from 15 miles high.
Lunar surface.
Mm-hmm.
So these are images that were taken by an instrument called the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter Camera. It's an instrument on the LRO mission. When I first took a look at these images, my jaw dropped to the ground.
Right, because they're fake.
When you see something that you've never seen before and in a quality that you've never seen before.
This is good. This is sharply illustrates. This is high quality. I could do this in Paint Shop in 2 minutes.
It really just made me speechless. For example, at the Apollo 17 landing site, we can see where the lunar rover is parked on the surface. We can see where it drove around the lunar module.
We can see the paths.
You can see the areas where the astronauts kicked up the dust when they walked around.
You can see the areas where they kicked up the dust. And remember, they're claiming these photos were taken from 15 miles high. I don't even know what that, how many feet is that? 15, 52, 80, about 80,000? I don't know, 80,000 feet. Go watch a Dwayne Kellum video when the camera gets to 80,000 feet. Tell me if you can see tracks left by humans walking around the Earth. Give me a freaking break. Let's continue.
You can see some of the experiments that were left behind sitting on the surface 40 years ago.
You can see
the
the
experiments. See where they are, still sitting there.
Look at these white dots. You can see these white dots
on the lunar surface.
I believe it now.
These are some of the most amazing images of the moon that I've ever seen, because they really put into sort of a really cool context of what was done back during Apollo.
It's always a cool context of what was done during Apollo. Thank you, official nerd Noah Petro. Oh boy, it's pretty sad. Thank you very much for the super chat. Dan Morris said, Bill Nye said it would cost more to generate the paperwork, right, for a fake mission than the cost of actually going to the moon. Wow. These people are mocking the public to see how much BS people will eat. Well, people will eat a lot. They will eat it. Nom, 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 nom. Give me some more. Nom, nom, nom. Yeah, it would be more expensive to make some paperwork than it would to send humans to the moon 238,000 miles away. No. Give me a break. It says, but wait, you say, what if the space agencies just fake those photos? Well, besides JAXA, plenty of other independent institutions outside of NASA, as well as amateur astronomers from around the world, have reported sightings of the remnants and signs of the past Apollo missions. Bullshit. Bullshit. Let me say it again in case you missed it. Bullshit. There's no amateur astronomer who's ever seen. It's just a joke. If you have a pretty powerful telescope, keep dreaming, and a clear view of the full moon, you may have an opportunity to see the evidence of these missions yourself. This is just bullshit lies on popular science. But this is what you have to expect. This is what they have to do. They have to bring this kind of nonsense constantly, and you have to buy into it if you're just, dense. I don't know. Let's see here if we go to this article from Ask an Astronomer. Are there telescopes that can see the flag and lunar rover on the moon? Is the flag that the astronauts left still on the moon? If so, can it be seen using a telescope? What about the lunar rover? Can we use the Hubble Space Telescope to see anything left by the astronauts? Let's read this answer. Yes, the flag is still on the moon. Of course, they have to say that, right? But you can't see it using a telescope. I found some statistics on the size of the lunar equipment in the press kit for the Apollo 16 mission. The flag is 4 feet long, and you would need an optical wavelength telescope around 200 meters, right, in diameter to see it. The largest optical wavelength telescope that we now have is the Keck telescope in Hawaii, which is 10 meters. So that's 20 times too small. The Hubble Space Telescope is only 2.4 meters in diameter, which would make it, much, 100 times? 100 times too small. 100 times too small. The largest telescope that we have, and even the Hubble, is 100 times too small to see. But wait a second. They just said here, and you can tell for yourself by lying to people. If you have a pretty powered telescope and a clear view of the moon, you can have an opportunity to see the evidence of these missions yourself. Bullshit. Let's tell people lies and put it. These are 7 ways you can tell for yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Easy to tell for yourself that the moon landings really happened. All you need to do is pretend that what we're saying is the truth. Pretend that you can go to a telescope at your friend's house and just pull up a full moon, zoom in, and take a look for yourself. You'll see evidence right there. People have done it. But the problem is they haven't. Sooner Squatch 74. Thank you for the super chat. Says see you in Dallas. I'll see you there. Agreed. Bullshit. Yes. Well. By the way, put the kitties to bed. It is Friday night, and I don't usually curse, but if you consider that cursing, well, then that's cursing. So, but what other word do you call it besides bullshit? It's just crap. It's just nonsense, and you can even call it effing bullshit if you want. Enjoy yourselves. But again, this is just lies. Okay, nobody can see these things, not even the Hubble telescope that's out there floating around the Earth without the atmosphere in the way. It can't even see anything. So you have to trust these images here. So let's go here. NASA spacecraft images offer sharper views of Apollo landing sites. I don't know. This link will be in the description, obviously. You can grab this little green bar and move it back and forth and see. This is the previous images, and now these are the more detailed images. But nothing gets any better. What are we even looking at? Oh, the footpath is a little bit hard to see, but if I pull this over, oh, it's clearer to see. Give me a break. You really think that this image was taken from 15 miles above the surface? There's another one down here. Again, you can pull it this way and this way. If you believe that this is the lander, this is an astronaut footpath, this is a surveyor crater, this is some equipment. And again, you can look here when we pull back and forth, the equipment just magically shows up. It's not there at all. There it is. Not there. There it is. You don't think somebody could go in with Paint Shop and add this? Do you know how easy that would be? The answer, ridiculously easy. Ridiculously easy. We're not going to watch this guy again. Again, they adjusted the orbit because they can't tell you can take these pictures all the time. So what they had to do, see, these higher resolution images is possible because of adjustments made to LRO's orbit. You just send up some info and LRO changes its orbit. Imagine that, though. There's a craft in orbit of the moon that is only 13 miles over. What? 13 miles? Are they kidding me? Are you kidding me? 13 miles is, 68,000 feet. So you have a craft in orbit of the moon that's 68,000 feet above the... What? My brain hurts. My brain. Ridiculous. So it says that they were able to change it. They made it an oval shaped or elliptical. But remember, India couldn't land on the South Pole of the moon today. But, we have a craft that's just going around. It can take pictures. We can adjust its orbit. We can take photos 13 miles above the ground. The maneuver lowered the LRO from its usual altitude of approximately 31 miles to an altitude that dipped as low as nearly 13 miles as it passed over the moon's surface. The spacecraft remained in that orbit for 28 days, long enough for the moon to completely rotate. This allows full coverage of the surface by LROC's wide-angle camera. The cycle ends today, and the spacecraft will be returned to its third. So these are the only images you're going to get. Here it is enlarged, so you can see, oh, there's the craft. This would be so easy to fraud. And again, these images remind us of our fantastic Apollo history and beckon us to continue to move forward in exploration of our solar system, said Jim Green. Please continue to give us money. Please let us continue to offer jobs. Please let us continue to sell fantasy to people. That's the way I look at it, but again, it's up to you. And there's another link we'll be able to check out if you want to see more images. Here you go. Here's the lunar module. Here's a discarded cover from the Lunar Ranger laser experiment. This little white dot is a discarded cover from 13 miles above. Who are you trying to fool? This is a camera on the ground from 13 miles above. This image of the Apollo 11 landing site captured from just 15 miles. Okay, well, it says 13, 15, whatever. Above the surface provides LRO's best look at yet humanity's first venture to another world. It's another world. It's another world in the sky that you'll never go to. Oh, boy. And it's just so funny how they have to put all these... When Neil Armstrong took his famous first steps, so famous, onto the lunar surface, he kicked around the soil. Yes, the surface is fine and powdery. Better believe it. Gazing at the flat horizon, he took in the view. Isn't that something? Magnificent sight out here. After collecting a contingency sample, he looked around and observed it has a stark beauty, all of its own. It's much like the high desert of the United States. It's different, but it's very pretty out there. That makes a lot of sense, right? It has a stark beauty, all of its own. It's much like the high desert in the United States. Oh boy, yeah, I highlighted this part too. You can even spot the discarded cover of the LRO, or the LRR, Ranger laser ranging retroreflector. I don't know. I'll get that. Lunar. I thought lunar was on it. Whatever. Again, if you want to believe this stuff, enjoy yourself. For me, I simply don't. It's that simple. Oh, let's move on here to the next one. Number 3. The regolith is reflective. Regolith. If you don't know what that is, I think it means dust. It's not really soil, but it's more rock fragments or something. Moon landing conspiracy theorists love to pore over the photographic evidence collected during Apollo 11 and pinpoint parts of the photos that allegedly debunk the whole landing outright. Well, that's kind of right to say, because if one photo can be proven to be fake, well, then the whole thing is fake. It means that you shot this in a studio, you changed some of the photos, you're lying to the public. It's not science, it's pseudoscience, it's nonsense, it's storytelling, it's Narnia. Okay? One of these points is the fact that objects in the lunar module's shadow are illuminated, which means that there must have been multiple light sources during the filming, instead of just the sun, as we're told, right? Not quite. Lunar dust regolith is a reflective material, and the sunlight bounces off it like it would a mirror. What? It's not a reflective. They've done studies. It's like 8% is the the reflective index of the moon dust. It's not going to bounce off it like it would a mirror, lighting up any surrounding objects nearby. I'll show you why they say that. You can understand this dynamic in better detail by viewing what graphics card maker NVIDIA did in 2014. Well, of course NVIDIA went and did something, and you can go and find that. And here's the article about NVIDIA. Takes on Apollo 11 moon landing deniers with technology. Right, and CGI. So just because you can... Have you ever seen Eru when he turns up, they're down the... maybe it's the reflective index, maybe it's the atmosphere levels. Well, of course, NVIDIA, which has the highest graphics card probably that there is, can make one where you can turn up everything until it matches the photos. It doesn't mean that that's real. What does that mean? And if we're saying that these things took place on Earth in a studio, then of course NVIDIA can recreate it. What difference does any of that make? None is really the answer. There's one of 7 images here. This is the image that usually people complain about, because obviously this should be in the shadow with the sun over here. Should he be lit up this much? You want to know what NVIDIA came up with, and the other people's debunking answer is it's the reflection off of Neil Armstrong's suit and the ground. It's like reflecting up. It's just nonsense. Here it says, in 2002, Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon, punched Bart Cyber in the face. They have to point that out, too. Is that okay to just punch people in the face? I didn't know that was allowed, or it's good to talk about, or something that's impressive. I don't find it impressive. Some 6% of Americans still believe that the government faked the Apollo moon landing. I guarantee it's more than 6%. But again, a lot of people don't want to admit it. A lot of people feel that they might be being watched, so they don't want to admit that. For all those coast-to-coast AM listeners who think the government staged the moon landing, it's just funny that they put that in there. Graphics card maker NVIDIA wants to set the record straight. They set the record straight by doing their own little test through their graphics card. Does that make any sense? See, this is like they're just recreating the graphics, and they say, see, it can happen. Well, what do you mean? By you turning up and changing the reflectivity of the ground? And what? Doesn't prove anything. We'll see, because if the sun was here, this is how light he would be according to our graphics card. Therefore, it happened. What? Here it says, NVIDIA used dynamic lighting technology from its new graphics card to recreate that landing in a new model. What do you mean? If people are saying it took place on a set, then you recreated the lighting of the set, and that means that they went to the moon? What? Why isn't Aldrin completely cast in shadow? It's due to the reflective properties of the lunar dust, says NVIDIA. Yeah, we just turned up the reflective properties of this dust until he looked like he should. Well, that doesn't mean anything. What does that mean? Yeah, see here, this big bright light here? This is supposedly Neil Armstrong's suit that's causing him to light up. Holy smokes. Conspiracy theorists say the bright light behind the module could have been a studio snafu, but NVIDIA says it's the reflection of Neil Armstrong's spacesuit. Thank you, NVIDIA. The view from another angle with Armstrong in the background. So bright that he lights up this astronaut. And this reflective surface is like a mirror. Give me a break. Of course, you send a serve over the net, they're going to volley. They're going to return it. They have to. They can't just say, oh, you're right. This doesn't make any sense. Oh, boy. It says, conspiracy theorists also like to point out that historic footage never showed any stars in the sky. True. NVIDIA says it's due to the closed aperture. Thank you, NVIDIA, which shows the astronauts and Apollo module clearly. An open aperture, which would clearly show the stars in the sky, would produce a blown-out photo of the moon surface. So where are those images? Where are those images of the stars? Never took them? Well, okay, I understand on Apollo 11. How about 12? Didn't take them? 14. Didn't take them? 15? 16? 17? No. Okay. Just making sure that you never did it. You never took pictures of the stars. It's not important. You never took a telescope to the moon. You never put a telescope on the ISS. And people still will believe it. They'll fall for it. They just, because NVIDIA says so, because a graphics card can make it, because something that you can turn up every dial. People have to have seen, maybe I'll have Iru on to talk about this soon, maybe even tomorrow or something. But just so he can point out that you can turn up and down all these different levels, even in his little program. And I'm sure NVIDIA can do much more. It doesn't mean that it's real. How does that prove anything? The answer? It doesn't. That's the easy answer. But again, people might want to believe it. But, they could have easily recreated, by the way, a single light source, much like they did like in the 1999 HBO series From the Earth to the Moon, where they used like a bunch of, I think I have images. Let me bring them up here. Let's go over here and bring up some images. By the way, thank you everybody for joining me. Hope you're having a good night. Enjoy your Friday. After this show, go have some loving with your significant other. Sounds like a good Friday, doesn't it? I agree. Let's see here. Let's go here and there and there. So, for the 1999 HBO series, From the Earth to the Moon, this is what they did. They basically had a bunch of spotlights, okay, and they shot them up towards a large mirror. It was a large convex mirror, and then that reflected back to their set. And this created parallel shadows. It created it quite well, but it doesn't mean that the actors in that movie were on the moon. Do you understand? So just because all the moon photos show parallel shadows, and if they don't, yeah, I understand. They might not be parallel because of undulations in the ground. There's another thing I'll show you in a second that kind of shows from certain angles, like the mistake I made. Well, yeah, you can have shadows that don't need to be parallel just because of where you're positioned and where the light source is positioned. Then what they did is they shot this up like this. Basically, all these spotlights shoot up towards the parabolic mirror, and then that mirror becomes the single light source, which lights up the entire scene, much like here. Okay, so over here on the right, you've got this large mirror reflecting the lights being sent up from behind some black sheet, so of course you can't see those, lighting up the lunar landscape with a single light source, much like here. Okay, yeah, oh yeah, parallel shadows, that proves they're on the moon. All the pictures are consistent, Jaron. They all show the angles going correctly. Okay, well then this is fake too. So what the hell are you talking about? What do you mean? You know? But again, a lot of people just don't get it. If you want something to check out, I always recommend aulis.com, AULIS.com. Very interesting article here. Apollo 14 second light source confirmed. This article is written by Luis Ernesto Bilbao. He's a PhD in physics from the University of Buenos Aires, professor and everything. And go ahead and read all about ray tracing, which is much more accurate than, and this is kind of what I was talking about, where here basically you set up a system where you have a camera at 0, 0, a light source off here to the left. And again, you might see these shadows and say, oh, well, these shadows are not, parallel. But yeah, if the distant light source is way over here, can you see where my mouse is? I don't know. Over here, well, you are going to get these shadows because of where you're standing. And this is kind of the mistake I made in the past. And, that's why I'm now looking back and say, well, of course they're going to have one light source. Wouldn't it? Now, was there a secondary light? Could there be some images that have a secondary light? Sure. But again, if NASA's going to fake the moon landing and they know that the moon has a single light source, well, then they would create a single light source. So it doesn't really shock me. But when you talk about shadows, you are going to have some instances where shadows go in different directions simply because of the way the camera is and where the light is. And while we say, hey, these shadows are not parallel, well, they don't need to be if this light source is way over here. But one of the things that he does a great job of is introducing ray tracing, which if you look here at this image, basically he's numbering the sticker here 1 and 1, the sticker 2 and 2, 3 the door frame here, and the door frame shadow. And then you do ray tracing where you take the top point of this and the top point of this and draw a line, and you'll get to the source, the camera, the picture being taken. And here lined up with here will also line up there. 3 with 3 will line up with there. When you do that, you can kind of see, and then if you lower the camera to your stomach, again, you can draw ray tracing and get that camera to the stomach. If you raise it above your head, again, the ray tracing will be perfectly lined up with where the photo is being taken. So you can look on the moon, and as this PhD scientist goes in and shows something interesting here, that these line up with about the face of the astronaut, not the chest, which is where the photo should be being taken. If you finish off these lines, they're not going to cross at the chest here like they should. So a lot of things showing problems. This guy shows lots of problems with the different ray tracing. So I think ray tracing is a better method than simply trusting the shadow direction. So that's something that I've changed on recently. Again, this article is called Apollo 14 Second Light Source Confirmed. But again, I'm not a big believer in that. But if you want to read, then allthis.com is just a plethora of articles, well written by good researchers. And again, Allis doesn't believe that we went to the moon. So check that out if you want. And again, was there anything else in this NVIDIA stuff? There was some proof. Was that in a different article here? Maybe that there was some images done before where they placed where the the sun. And when they do ray tracing, it turns out the sun should be here. Now, this sun is not in the photo. They've added this, and somebody added it as part of basically an artificial sun, showing where the sun should be for these shadows. Really, it should be here, and in the image, there is no sun. The real image doesn't have a sun here, even though the ray tracing places it here. So, again, it's a good article. Check it out if you want. You will enjoy it. So the whole NVIDIA thing is just nonsense. They didn't do anything other than just kind of work backwards at getting and saying, "Oh, we've debunked the moon hoax conspiracy," which is nonsense. They did no such thing. So let's head back to the article. Okay. Where were we? Graphics card, right? When demonstrating the power of the latest products by continuing red. Okay. Somewhat relatedly, the existence of unparalleled shadows in these photos has often been an argument that multiple stage lights were used to film the footage. This is also easy to debunk since you can easily recreate this with an uneven surface on Earth. Right. If you go outside, if you have a straight, flat ground and you've got telephone poles, all those shadows will be quite parallel. But again, if you have a little dip in the road and maybe you have any kind of uneven surface, maybe a tree on a hill, you're not going to have a shadow. So I just don't think it's a good argument anymore to really pay much attention to the shadow issues on the moon. There's much more to go with. And again, they're just going to return that volley. You can't prove anything from that. Let's go here. The stars are still around. And again, these are funny because these are supposed to be ways that you can tell for yourself. Oh, you can tell for yourself because the dust on the moon is so reflective. I can't tell anything for myself. What do you mean? Just like this one. I can't see for myself with a telescope. You're lying. I can't see for myself that the dust is a certain reflectivity. You're lying. The stars are still around. Another argument in favor of and by the way, this is number 4. Another argument in favor of a fake moon landing is that there are no stars depicted in photos of the event. If the moon has no atmosphere, we should be able to see an entire lit up sky lit by distant stars, right? Correct. But that ignores some basic technological constraints behind photographing things on the moon. In such a dark background with objects so brightly lit by the sun, the aperture of the camera needed to be kept small in order to photograph the lander and the astronauts clearly and sharply, and not blurred objects from the Blair Witch Project or something. This invariably leaves the camera unable to pick up any faint starlight in the background sky. Again, this is no way for you to know for yourself. It's no 7 easy ways for you to know for yourself. This is simply believe what we say, that this is because of the camera. The problem is that the astronauts themselves couldn't see stars on the moon. Let's check out Neil Armstrong here talking to Sir Patrick Moore, shall we?
Armstrong, I do realize that when you were on the moon, you had very little time for gazing upwards. But could you tell us something about what the sky actually looks like from the moon, the sun, the earth, the stars, if any, and so on?
So what the sky looked like from the moon, the sun, the earth, the stars, if any.
The sky is a deep black when viewed from the moon, as it is when viewed from cislunar space, the space between the Earth and the moon.
So from the surface of the moon, the sky is a deep black, the same as it is in cislunar space, the space between the Earth and the moon.
The Earth is the only visible object other than the sun that
The Earth is the only visible object other than the sun.
Can be seen, although there have been some reports of seeing planets. I myself did not see planets from the surface, but I suspect they might be visible.
So they couldn't see stars. They couldn't see anything other than the Earth. But you see his problem with speaking about this is because of the fact that they knew there weren't going to be any stars in the photos. So you just need to watch his mannerisms and understand what he's coming across.
What the sky actually looks like from the moon.
Think of how hard this would be
if any, and so on.
for him to explain.
The sky is a deep black when viewed from the moon, as it is when viewed from cislunar space, the space between the Earth and the moon.
Right.
The Earth is the only visible object other than the sun that can be seen, although...
Do you understand what's going on here? It must have been impossible for him because he knew that in the simulated environment in the studio there was going to be no stars. So when he says, could you see any stars from the surface? Well, the Earth is the only visible thing in the sky. What am I supposed to say here? How do I get this across? We couldn't put stars in the images, so yeah, it is what it is. Let's just go to one other part here that I think is important to point out. This is Neil Armstrong and, of course, Sir Patrick Moore. Let's pick it up from here.
You're one of the very, very few people, I think, whose opinion on this is really worth having. In fact, there are only 4 of you. Do you think, from your knowledge of the moon, having been there, that it is going to be possible in the foreseeable future to set up scientific bases there on anything like a large scale?
Oh, I'm quite certain that we'll have such bases in our lifetime.
Wrong. For those who don't know, Neil Armstrong is no longer with us, so that means his lifetime is now over. And do we have bases on the moon, or did we never go back?
Somewhat like the Antarctic stations
we will.
and similar scientific outposts, continually manned.
Oh, continually manned. This is said by somebody who thinks that, he's been told, well, we'll eventually get there. We just can't get there now. We need you guys to pretend like we did. It will boost morale. The entire country will get behind you. You'll get paraded. You'll get celebrated, and then we'll eventually get there in the future, and then everything will be fine. But nope, didn't happen. Hasn't happened. So let's see here now what number we're on. So are the stars? This is such a problem here. With another argument in favor of the fake moon landing is that there are no stars depicted in the photos of the event. The other problem is the astronauts themselves didn't see stars. Okay, why not? You should be able to see them brilliantly, even with the sun out. There's no atmosphere to wash out the sky. You would see stars brilliantly all over. Please check out my videos that I've done. Why don't we see stars? I think one of the best versions of that is the one where it's called the Cosmonaut. I don't know what it's called. I'll put a link to it in the description, as always. It was response to Alexei something. I don't know what the name of the video is. Anyway, let's continue on. Lunar rovers have seen what astronauts have seen. Okay, lunar rovers have seen what astronauts have seen. This is the way that you yourself can tell 7 easy ways that the moon landings really happened. The same landscapes and scenes captured by the Apollo astronauts have been captured in recent years by the robotic orbiters and rovers we've sent to... Who's we've? We've sent to... Who, you and your buddies? No, sorry, you haven't sent anything to the moon. You haven't sent a damn thing. Japan's Selene Cayuga orbiter, for instance, has been able to snap up images that, when put together, illustrate the base of the Apennine Mountains, also photographed during Apollo 15. Imagine the ridiculousness of this statement and nonsense. So this is supposedly an image taken from the moon. Okay, you've got the lunar rover here, you got footprints, you've got this background. So supposedly there's some rover on the moon that was able to take this image, okay? Which, if you look at the mountain, you can kind of see this little peak here, long peak, big peak. We'll go up here, peak, long peak, big peak. You've got this little mountain here. Up here, we got this little mountain here. You got this background mountain here. You got this background mountain here. You've got this foreground image. You've got this foreground image. You've got this. If you believe that this is a real photograph, oh boy. I mean, are you getting 16 flu shots a week? That's my question. Stop. Cut them back. Take 8 flu shots a week. Maybe 4. You don't need 16. Are you drinking fluoridated water by the gallon? Stop it. Please stop. So why can't this image, why can't this lunar rover go take a picture of the rover that's there? Why can't it just turn around and take a picture of the limb? Why can't it take a picture of the experiments? It can only take a picture of a hill. Look at this photo, folks. I don't know what else to say. Give me a break. It's disgusting. Sad. Embarrassing. All those things. Just to think that, oh, well, there's a rover out there that's driving around and it took a picture of this mountain and the same mountain is here. You could just clip this and put it right here. You can't tell by there's no foreground. Look at this washout. I mean, how hard would this be to fake? It'd be easier than anything I can ever imagine. But again, people want to believe it. Why? I don't know. Okay. Let's see here. So that was number 5. Lunar rovers have seen what astronauts have. Sorry, I find it funny. I really do. Let's go back here. What's next? The flag wasn't moving. Okay. Let's see here. Perhaps one of the most talked about pieces of evidence to suggest the moon landing was faked has to do with the alleged movement of the flag. Okay. Now this is 7 easy ways you can tell for yourself that the moon landing really happened. Because footage of the U.S. flag moving after it was planted has been cited as evidence that the wind's blowing through the cloth, wind that can't exist on the moon. Okay. In truth, the flag is not flapping. It's disturbed as it's being planted. No, in some cases, maybe you can say that, but I'm about to show you in another case where the astronauts are in the craft. And those disturbances are causing ripples to move through the cloth. There's no denying that. It's not fluttering in the wind. NASA even has a GIF that shows the flag still between 2 different images. Who cares? What the hell does that mean? It says the flag is still up there, and it looks like it's in a gust of wind thanks to wires placed inside to keep the cloth upright. And it's been still for decades now. It's just sitting there still. Everyone, you believe that? I don't. Let's watch this video. And again, it's a great channel called Moon Fakery. This is The Hidden Flag by Jeff Windsor. He's done some great work, but we're about to watch this particular thing. And I want you to pay attention to... Do I have the whole screen up so you can see it? Actually, I'm going to make it a little bit larger for you. Whoops. Don't click that. Let's bring it to this one. What's going on here? That was weird. Okay, let's go ahead and start this and listen to what he's got to say.
This is Apollo 14. The astronauts have just completed their second excursion on the moon during EVA-2.
So they're in the craft, by the way.
And they have gone back into the ship, and they are preparing now to jettison what they will not be taking with them back to the moon. And in the upper right-hand corner of your picture, you are going to see the flag move 8 times.
Okay,
a total of 8 times.
So watch carefully up here. This is just playing. These guys are in there. There's, they're talking back and forth and what they have to do to depressurize and everything. And we're going to be watching this area right here. And, I've checked this very carefully to see, is the screen moving? No, well, there's the flag. It's blowing in the wind. And I've lined this up to say, well, is the whole screen moving? What's going on here? Then it disappears. But no, the screen didn't move. This shadow is still lined up equally. You can kind of look at this crease maybe here. If you can see that. I don't know if it comes through. Might not. But if you kind of look at that crease and exactly where it is with these shadows lined up with these rocks, again, you can just watch. And remember, there is no astronauts holding this flag. There it is again. Blowing. Let's listen to Jeff talk about it a little.
It's just blowing in the breeze. And there is no possible scientific explanation that fits this scenario with the astronauts in the ship. This is a clear smoking gun, folks. And we've been told
Pretty
by
clear.
NASA and their defenders.
Now, again, these are just going to be served up and volleyed, right? They're going to be returned. You know, we'll just click through this and see no flag there, little flag there, little more flag, little less. Now, you can go and follow this video, and again, the link will be in the description. Please check it out in its entirety, because you can actually see the answers that they give for why this flag is blowing as such, and it's ridiculous. They actually say, well, I'll let him tell you a
Are
little bit.
definitely damage control.
Okay, we can release this now. Okay, thank you.
By the way, you can see here, if you pay attention, that in the ALSJ clip, that they've actually removed it. They like adjust it so that you can't see this.
9 days
Well,
after
what else do you
AJV
need?
claimed that the flag had been blown,
Now check this out.
the ALSJ people made an official response to the Bad Astronomy Board. And here it is, quote, as one of the posters noted, the flag swings around the pole in response to cabin depression.
Can you imagine that while they were depressing the cabin, somehow enough gas dumped out of the craft, which flew across the nothingness of space and affected the flag? Holy smokes.
It would be a very interesting exercise in fluid dynamics to estimate how long it would take expansion of the dumped gas to reach the flag and how much force it would impart. There are folks who know how to make such estimates, but I'm not one of them.
So again, these are just thing after thing after thing that we can point out about the moon landing, but they'll just be returned. And there's people out there that are so set in this idea of the moon landings and how great America is and how great we are and how great our ingenuity is and the brilliance of 400,000 people coming together for this one thing that was 50 years ago that we can't repeat now, that they're willing to take any excuse. So this is the excuse, right? That there's some sort of gas flying out, which is just nonsense. Again, you got to check out this video in its entirety. He even goes through and explains exactly how much. We'll listen to this.
Right here. They mentioned this graph in their defense, but it actually destroys their alibi. The pressure of the atmosphere is measured on the left side where it says pressure torr, and you will see that the pressure changes from 10 to the -7 approximately to almost 10 to the -6. That is an infinitesimal amount. That is a tiny, tiny amount you cannot even imagine. 0.000.
He goes in to show you exactly how nonsense it is by comparing it to different wind gusts and what exactly that pressure is, and you can't even imagine how little that is. It's not possible. But again, you go back to these articles and you read that it says that the flag, in truth, it's not flapping, it's disturbed as it's being planted. And people who read these kind of articles on Popular Science, is it any wonder why they think we went to the moon? Because articles like this are like, yeah, this is right. It's only flapping because the guys are touching it. You know, that doesn't just wave in the wind, even though it does. But again, if they find out that it does in my video or another video, they're just going to go and listen. Well, it's actually gas depressurization. And the guys were in the craft, and when they depressurized it, it blew the flag around. So whatever you put up there, whatever you put over the net, it's going to be returned. You have to expect that. They can't just say, oh, you're right, the flag is moving. Clearly the entire thing was fake. Well, they can't say that. They can't let that out, and they never will. And so you either need to be smart enough to recognize these things, or you need to believe it. It's up to you. Clearly, you know my position. Clearly. But again, each person their own. I just like to make videos. I like to get my point across, let everybody know my opinion on the thing, and it's up to them to either believe it or not. Thank you very much for the super chat from Silver Umbrella, who said, yeah, embarrassing. Well, yeah, it truly is. Again, and this isn't a way you can tell for yourself that the moon landing, because you lied to people, because you tell them that they can see the things with the telescope, because you tell them that the flag only moved because people are... In truth, the flag is not flapping. It's disturbed as it's being planted. What? That's not true. So if I believe the not true things, then I can disprove the moon hoax. Okay, got you. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it's tough. It's tough. It's just you got to point these things out and move on, right? I mean, that's kind of my new direction is just point it, move on. There's going to be tons of comments in the comment section. You're going to see people saying, well, this is wrong, and Jaren's wrong about this, and actually this is true, and NVIDIA did prove it, and you can see it from this particular telescope at this particular time, and the Hubble telescope's got a weird mirror situation, and with the mirrors you can't see that, but we can see Jupiter, so we know that's true. We can see the rings of Saturn, which is only a few billion miles away, but the moon, which is only a quarter million, we can't zoom in on the flag or anything. Embarrassing. As Silver Umbrella has put it quite well. Hey, boy. All right, let's go on to the number 7. And probably the most hilarious one. I don't know. And one thing I forgot to mention, I just want to mention it again. I was talking about the 1999 HBO series From the Earth to the Moon and showing you those different, and you might have been thinking to yourself, well, they didn't have that technology in 1969. Do some research. You'll see clearly that they had high-powered spotlights in the 1960s. And they definitely had a convex mirror, okay? Even a large one. So don't tell me, well, they didn't have that technology. They didn't have CGI. Yeah, we know they didn't have CGI. Nobody's saying that the moon landing was faked using CGI. So do you see the problem here? We are saying that NVIDIA is proving the moon landing with CGI. Do you see the problem here? I do. I see it. It makes sense to me. I don't know about you guys, Logan Cook, thank you very much. $2 saying support what you like or it goes away. Yeah, that's very, very true, and I appreciate everyone's support. Thank you all for the super chats this evening. As always, they're greatly appreciated. Or go to patreon.com/jeranism. All right, the retroreflectors are still there as well. And this is the other way that you can tell for yourself. You can tell for yourself. What? How can I? Wait, I can tell for myself because some boxes that you say NASA left there are there. Okay. Laser ranging retroreflectors are mirrors that were once used, because they're not used anymore, as targets for Earth-based lasers as part of NASA's lunar laser ranging experiments conducted during the Apollo program. They were actually conducted before the Apollo program. I'll show you that in a second. Russia also had a retroreflector experiment program as well. Basically, you fire a laser at those objects and measure the time it takes for the laser to hit the reflectors and bounce back. The results of those experiments allowed us to learn that the moon is spiraling away from the Earth at about 3.8 centimeters per year. Thank you very much for Heavy Metal Unicorn for the super chat. I'm just dying laughing myself. This is ridiculous. We have to think about this. That the moon is spiraling away from the Earth at 3.8 centimeters per year. Imagine that you have some sort of laser and you're bouncing it off mirrors on the moon. And you can tell that the moon is moving 1.5 inches per year. Get out. Get the hell out. You don't even need to close the door on your way out. Just run. Get in your car and get off the street. Get out of the town, out of the state, probably out of the country. Just keep going, because that's nonsense. It's utter nonsense. Don't know what else I can say about that. Just think about this. The moon is 15,079,680,000 inches from the Earth. And they can detect that it's moving away 1.5 inches per year. They are detecting a change of 0.000000000000099%. Can you even imagine that nonsense? It's more likely that the ground that you were on would be moving that much in a year than to think that you could actually measure the distance to the moon by that kind of... What? Oh, it's such a joke. Such a joke. But again, many people will believe it, and it's one of the easy ways that you can tell for yourself that we've been to the moon. That is true. Heavy Metal Unicorn says, literally all I have in my bank. Oh, love you, buddy. Love you too. Thank you very much for that, but please don't send super chats if that's all you have. Save that for yourself, your family. Only if you have, funds to support and you enjoy the work, then please do. But thank you for that. I can't say thank you enough. That's awesome. Okay, so let's what else did they figure out by shooting this laser at the moon? 20% of the inner core of the moon is probably liquid. You can tell that from shooting lasers at it. And flesh out some nuances about how gravitational forces work, among other things. The results of those experiments could only be made possible by the installation of those reflectors on the lunar surface. Oh, yeah, right. Sure. Let's go over here. And by the way, the first landing, okay, soft landing, supposedly, of a craft was 1966. Okay. So when you look at this page for the Lunar Laser Ranging Experiment, and just one time, let's make sure that we're talking about the same thing. We are talking about NASA's Lunar Laser Ranging Experiment. It says conducted during the Apollo program. Okay. The ongoing Lunar Laser Ranging Experiment measures the distance between the surface of Earth and the Moon using laser ranging. Lasers at observatories around the Earth are aimed at retroreflectors planted on the Moon during the Apollo program and 2 Luna-Cold missions. Laser light pulses are transmitted and reflected back to Earth, and the round-trip duration is measured. The lunar distance is calculated from this value. Bullshit. But let me read you this part, which is just hilarious. Silver Umbrella just said, poor fundies, come on, that's not believable. Well, none of it is. But again, it says the distance to the moon is calculated approximately. First of all, if something's calculated approximately, don't tell me you can tell that it's moving away 1.5 inches per year when we're talking about something 238,000 miles away. If the distance is calculated approximately, then approximately you're 1.5 inches off. It's stupid. Using the equation, distance equals speed of light times the duration of delay due to reflection divided by 2. It's that easy, right? Makes a lot of sense. It says to compute the lunar distance precisely, many factors must be considered, in addition to the round-trip time of about 2.5 seconds. These factors include the location of the moon in the sky, the relative motion of the Earth and the moon, Earth's rotation, lunar libration, polar motion, weather, velocity of light in various parts of the air, propagation delay through the Earth's atmosphere, the location of the observing station and its motion due to crustal motion and tides and relativistic effects, but we know that it's 1.5 inches per year. Get out. Get out. Go home. Don't come by here anymore. Don't watch my videos. Hit delete, hit block, and go watch Bill Nye tell you about how he's not a scientist. Do that for me, because it's ridiculous. Exactly. Poor fundies. You know, because it's just ridiculous. Go watch Bill Nye.
Yes, it's nothing but hostility. The big one is Bill Nye's not a scientist. Okay.
Okay.
I can read a graph. So
all right, he can read a graph, and the graph says that the moon is moving 1.5 inches per year. So it's a fact. Go watch him. Go watch Smarter Every Day. Go watch someone else. Don't watch me. Because if you can believe that shit, you're out of your mind. If you believe that we just take rocks and we do some radiometric dating, even though nothing has stayed the same, how do you know what the atmosphere was like 200 years ago, 400 years ago, 600 years ago, 6,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago? You have no freaking clue. But what do these guys do? Well, we can figure it out. We just take this rock and we do some laser spectrometry. And when we do, we figure out that it's about, it's about 4.5 billion years old, which is 200 million years older than the rocks on the Earth. Bullshit. Straight up bullshit. But again, believe what you want. Believe it if you want. Again, let's just read one more time just because it's funny. That they know now with precise distance. I think down here it says something about millimeter preciseness or something, but we'll read that in a second. Let's just read this again. And let's remember that we're measuring the distance to the moon, and they say that they've figured out that it's moving 1.5 inches per year. What? And what kind of things are taken into account? Well, it's kind of easy. Approximately, we can use the equation distance equals speed of light times the duration of delay due to reflection divided by 2. But really, there's much more factors, including the location of the moon in the sky, right? We have to figure out where the moon is in the sky. The relative motion of the Earth and the moon, and the Earth's rotation. We need to figure out how fast it's rotating at this particular location. The lunar libration, the polar motion. We got to figure out the polar motion. Then we got to figure out the weather, because the weather is going to affect the amount of time that the light takes to go back. The velocity of light in the various parts of the air. The propagation delay through the Earth's atmosphere. We figured that out. We know all the distances the laser travels through from 10 feet above me to 100 feet above me. 100,000 feet above me. We know all the differences. The location of the observing station and its motion due to the crustal motion, because, this land is moving too. The tides, we have to take the tide into account, and the relativistic effects. There's relativity going on. Einstein said so. And we can figure out from that, once we figure it out, it's 1.5 inches per year. Get out. Get out. At the moon's surface, the beam is about 4 miles wide. So remember, when I shot a beam across 4 miles of water, the beam divergence went from 3 millimeters to about 10 feet when it crossed 4 miles. For them, they say that their beam is 4 miles wide and it's hitting retroreflectors. What? By the way, one thing I forgot, I almost missed this. The first successful tests were carried out in 1962. Wait a second, hold on. The lunar lander, so they went up there, the astronauts placed retroreflectors, but the first successful tests were carried out in 1962. But wait a second, the first time anything supposedly landed on the moon was January 31st, 1966, the Luna 9. So then what did you bounce the lasers off of? Well, when a team from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology succeeded in observing laser pulses reflected from the moon's surface. So you can shoot lasers, and they can return from the moon's surface using a laser with a millisecond pulse length. So hold on. And then similar measurements were obtained later the same year by a Soviet team. But the fact that we get those returns is proof that astronauts placed retroreflectors there? But you did it when there was no retroreflectors there in 1962. Folks, it's up to you. Believe what you want. It's ridiculous. At the moon's surface, the beam is about 4 miles wide. So imagine 4 miles. Think of how long 4 miles is. The beam of light that hits the moon is 4 miles wide. Get out. Get out. Don't even take any time to grab your belongings. Just leave. Get out. And scientists liken the task to aiming a beam to using a rifle to hit a moving dime 1.9 miles away. What? Because remember, the moon's moving. We're moving. We use this laser and we point it precisely and we do it, and then the 4 mile light beam hits the moon. Get out. The reflected light, of course, is too weak to see with the human eye. Of course, out of the 10 to the 17 photons aimed at the reflector, only one is received back on Earth, even under good conditions. Wow. Holy smokes. Do you grasp what they're saying here? Okay. Out of the 1 quintillion photos, 1 is received back. Goodness gracious. 1. And they did it when they didn't have retroreflectors there in 1962. But again, it's just like a serve. I serve it over. Here comes all the ballers to say, no, but Jaren's wrong because we can tell that it's because it's monochromatic. It's a monochromatic return. And we only send a quintillion photons, but that one comes back and we know that it's from the laser retroreflector put there by Buzz Aldrin, my hero. My hero. Stop talking about my hero. He's an astronaut. He's a hero. He rode around in parades and got dropped into the ocean. Yeah, here we go. They can be identified as originating from the laser because the laser is highly monochromatic. This is one of the most precise distance measurements ever made and is equivalent in accuracy to determining the distance between Los Angeles and New York to within 0.22 millimeters. Sorry, I almost didn't bring you back. There we go. So that's... Sorry, I have to read that again. It is equivalent in accuracy to determining the distance between Los Angeles and New York to within 0.01 inches using a laser that's 4 miles when it gets to 4 miles wide. What? How do you even know where the edge of the light beam is? What are you talking about? It is such bullshit. But again, this is what they serve back, and if you are somebody who wants to believe in this, then you'll find it as a reason to believe it. It's just nonsense, in my opinion. I mean, think about this. They're measuring the distance to the moon with millimeter precision, they say. Says who? Says who? Who's going out and actually doing the measurement to prove that you measured correctly? Do you understand? Like if I shot a laser across my street to my neighbor's garage across the street and I said, I'm actually able to compute this with millimeter precision, then what's the first thing somebody's going to say? Oh, well, show me the real measurement. You've shot your laser. Okay, you got that. You've figured out with your mathematics, and once you've taken everything into account, once you've shot the laser across and you realize the location of the garage across the street, the relative motion of the earth and the garage, the garage's rotation as it moves opposite me, the garage libration, the polar motion, the weather of the day, I'm shooting through the atmosphere here, the velocity of lights through the various parts of the air as it has to go across the street, the propagation delay through the atmosphere across the street, and the location of the observing station and its motion due to the crustal motion that I'm on. And then I take the tide into account and I take relativity into account. Once I do that and I tell you that I'm coming up with millimeter precision, your next thing is going to be show me the actual measurement. I can't just say it's millimeter precision. Who the hell am I? What are you talking about? You can't just say that. You have to prove that. But this is their proof. Their proof is, well, our laser tells us that. So how do you know it's millimeter precision? Who the hell's saying that? The answer, nobody. Nobody. It's all make-believe, fantasy in your mind. And again, that is the end of that article. Pretty hilarious. And you can tell for yourself, clearly. The moon rocks that you can't touch and you can't test. You can tell for yourself, the moon rocks, they've been brought back. You can tell for yourself because you can go see the landing spots from any telescope. Just look at a full moon, bring it up. You could look right at it. You can see the you can see the rover. I can see the footprints from my front yard. So you can. Just grab a telescope, go look at the footprints. The regolith is reflective. The lunar dust acts like a mirror because we need it to, because the pictures were kind of out of, they're a little too bright. We had the astronaut shouldn't have been so bright in the photo. So what we say is that the dust is ultra reflective. Okay? The stars are still around. They're there, but you couldn't see them in the photographs. But you can prove this for yourself because, well, you can change the level. No, you can't do that. You just imagine that the stars are there, and then you can prove for yourself that they're still there. So there's the easy ways you can tell for yourself that this is clearly, yeah, people say that there's no stars in the photos, but there's a reason for that. And the reason that Neil says he couldn't see them is because he's talking about something different, guys. He's talking about when he was flying through the corona and he tried to look at the sun, it was too bright. The reflector off he couldn't see stars on the moon because his aperture of his eyes was closed. It needs to be open. Lunar rovers have seen what astronauts have, guys. If you just go look at the pictures, they can't show you the equipment, but they can show you the same mountain in very grainy footage. So you can easily tell. You can easily tell. So easy. The flag wasn't moving. Every time the flag waves, it's because an astronaut is placing it into the ground. How many times do we have to go over this? And when they twist it, it's like made of tinfoil, so it blows around, and then when they let it go, it doesn't move anymore. And when it moves, when the guys are in the craft, it's because they're venting gas. It's flying across and pushing the flag. Serve it up. I'll volley it back. I'll return the serve every time. Just return. It's easy. The retroreflectors are still there, and we couldn't know that the moon, as it says here, is 20% of the inner core of the moon is probably liquid, and the results of those experiments could only be possible by the installation of those retroreflectors on the lunar surface. We wouldn't know how to flesh out some nuances about how gravitational forces work, among other things, if the retroreflectors weren't there. So it's quite simple. It really is quite simple. Okay? Paraplegic Bear said they definitely can tell if the moon has moved a few centimeters, and I'm competing in the Olympics at hurling next year. Good luck. Good luck. I'm expecting you to probably post a time of about 1.5 seconds. So, Plain Reality says 4 miles is pretty wide with a good telescope. Should be able to see the green point of light on the surface of the moon. No, says you can't. No, it says it says you can't. Where did it say that? The reflected light is too weak to see with the human eye. But you're right. Maybe with a telescope. I don't know. We'll have to go try that. But again, they've shut down these lunar ranging experiments for whatever reason. That's why in that one article, wherever it said, was it in this one? Are mirrors that were once used as targets, right? A lot of them don't work anymore. They can't find the spot. Read this article again. It will be in the. You can find other people who have supposedly they stopped getting returns from a certain retroreflector, but then all of a sudden some students found it. So it's all here. You can read about it yourself. I don't feel like reading about it. All I need to see is everybody tell me over and over again, we left the reflectors there, that's the way how did you get to the moon? You didn't know the distance? No, well, in 1962, we carried out a test from MIT. Observe, oh yeah, well, okay. So you can send lasers off and bounce off the moon. Okay, well, great. So what do you need laser reflectors for? What have those proven? Well, nothing. Truth is pain, Freddie. I totally agree. Melanie Moran, thank you very much for the super chat. Plain Reality says, one rip in a suit and death within 1 minute, yet astronauts were carelessly falling over the place. It's gross. And there's so many more things that I could have covered. Remember, I'm only covering these 7 just because I found the article hilarious. Came across it yesterday and was like, holy smokes, because I love to read things like that. Well, these are 7 easy ways that you can tell yourself. And then I read through them and I say, there was 0 ways. You gave me 0. Popular Science magazine is just flat out telling lies, making things up, telling you can see things from telescopes. And then other reasons that you can tell for yourself that make no sense. You can tell for yourself because, yeah, even though people say that there's no stars in the photographs, the stars are there. The stars are still around. What do you mean? What does that mean? The stars are they're not there. The astronauts said they can't see them, and they're not found in the photographs, but they're still there. It's just the camera. Even though you can change all the levels all you want, there's no stars. Even though my iPhone camera, I can just go outside. I've done it before. I've showed you guys before, where you just take it and you walk from your brightly lit garage and you go out to the side and you put your camera up towards the sky and you can see all the stars. Fine. You can even see them with the brightly lit garage below it. But again, serve it up, they're going to volley it back. They have to. Truth is pain. It's very true. 33 millimeters. No, I think Silver Umbrella. I think it's 3. Did I read it wrong? I could have read it wrong. I don't know. So, did it say 33? I don't know where I got that number from, but I think that's what they said. But let's see if I can find it. Control find 3 millimeter. Was it 33? 33 millimeter? I don't see it anywhere. I don't know where I got that from, but I think that's what it says, that they're able to figure it out. Let's see. The moon is spiraling away from Earth at a rate of 3.8 centimeters per year. We talked about how nonsense that is. The moon has 20%, the liquid core of about 20% of the moon's radius. It's nonsense. The universal force of gravity is very stable. It only alternates at about 2 plus or minus 7 times 10 to the negative 13. Yeah, I don't know where I read that from, but it's somewhere in there. I think that's with what they say, that they can get that kind of preciseness. But I don't have time to read this right now in full, but somewhere in there it says it. Just ridiculous. Again, believe what you want. Enjoy yourselves if you so desire. But that's pretty much it. So I got a lot of links that I will include in the description. It always takes me a little while to, propagate all these, get all these in there for you, so you can read any of this stuff yourself. And you can watch this movie. I suggest you watch this, Moon Fakery, talking about the hidden flag, where clearly the flag is blowing along in the wind. No flag, no flag, no flag, flag. But this is because the gas being released is blowing the flag. Oh, who believes this stuff? Well, a lot of people. And again, it's so easy. Think of how easy it would be for me just to read this article and say, oh, okay, well, I believe in the moon landing. Simple, huh? And that's what they do. They make it so that it's so easy for you to believe lies in this world. It's so easy just to buy into whatever the news says. Hurricane Dorian's going to wash out the entire Florida. It's coming. It's Category 5. It's very easy for you just to sit there and believe all the nonsense and go buy all the water you can and go buy all the food you can and fill up your gas tank and help the economy. It's very easy. They just make it simple for you to believe in lies. And if you want to contest them, it's impossible. It's so difficult. Anything you serve up, they volley right back. Anything you say, they have an answer for. You have sites like Metabunk that will just go and disprove anything you say. How do they disprove it? By just repeating the mainstream. How is that disproving anything? It's not, but the people who believe the mainstream think it is. Well, just repeat. It's just like Quora. just repeat, did Neil Armstrong really do it? Well, Neil Armstrong actually did go to the moon. And there's proof of that because he said so here and said so there. And, 400,000 scientists can't be in on a conspiracy like that. They couldn't keep it a secret. Science has proven that it would have been released in 4 years if 400,000 people knew about it. So stupid. So stupid. Especially when we've got Gene Kranz telling us flat out of his own little mouth. The quote one more time. In the late 1960s, our simulation technology had progressed to the point where it became virtually impossible to separate the training from actual missions. So do you think today it's any further along that all these guys sitting at their control stations would have no idea if the data is simulated? Again, folks, believe what you want. You can have everybody tell you how real it is. But this guy's telling you that in 1966, it was so, or 1969, it was so, the simulations were so real that no controller could discern the difference between the training and the real mission. I'm not sure what else really needs to be said. That's 7 easy ways you can tell for yourself that the moon landing never really happened. It's pretty funny. So I don't know. I don't know what you guys think. Joey Rocha says, "Where is the curve?" That was in Arnold Schwarzenegger's voice. Yes. Hello to everyone in the chat. I don't know who's here. I know it's late. Sorry. People on the East Coast are Globebusters in the house. Absolutely, Bob. Bob just brought up refraction, something I didn't even think about. You're right. Isn't it interesting that they claim to be able to measure the distance to the moon in fractions of an inch and yet never take refraction into consideration? How would they know how much it refracts? It's still, when they say, oh, it's this kind of accuracy, says who? Who has taken the measurement? Who took the tape measure to the moon to say, yep, these lasers are within 3 millimeters? No, you've made it up. You've come up with that distance. So you can't just confirm it by yourself. It would be like me sending a laser across the street to the garage and saying, I can calculate that garage's distance within 3 millimeters. And then somebody saying, well, show me, go measure it. Well, there's no way to really measure it. It's just out there, over there. The garage is over there, and I'm very accurate with my laser. Yeah, but you said you are so accurate that it's within this distance of, how do you know that? Well, because I'm telling you. If I'm telling you that's the case, then how do you dare question it? That's their attitude. I don't get it. I don't get it. But again, it's up to you. It's up to you guys, whatever you want. So anyway, I don't know. So thank you guys so much for watching. I don't think I need anything. Oh, Iru, I wanted you on the show today. Oh, totally agree. Iru's here. Maybe we'll do something soon. That'd be awesome, Iru. I would love to have your opinion on some of this stuff, especially the whole NVIDIA nonsense. I would really love to hear. Joshua Doyle, thank you so much for being here. A lot of good people in the chat. Thank you guys for joining me. It's been fun. Definitely check out Globebusters coming on Sunday, and maybe I'll do something tomorrow. I don't think I have plans. There's Ira. What's up, man? Good to have you in the house. But again, I talked about you a little bit earlier, when I was talking about the NVIDIA saying that they were, able to turn up the regolith reflection rate, and then it matched, and then that proves that the moon landing actually happened. It didn't. But this is what they tell us. So I don't know. Yeah, I just arrived to my home just 20 minutes. What does that mean? Anybody understand Iro? Because I don't understand him. It's got to speak better English, I think. Anyway, so yeah, the sheeple are the problem. As long as it's not in the... Don't lie, Melanie. You know you want Iro to call in from the shower. Don't tell lies. Idra Television says, do you still think you live in a cartoon oblate pear-shaped spheroid they forgot to make a cartoon CGI of? Lumberjack, great show, Jaron. Thank you. Joshua, fun show. Great, thank you. I'd love to hear that. Yes, India did lose contact with the moon lander. Does that surprise you? That shouldn't surprise you, Iro. Excellent. Steve Matthews, Teeth of the Lamb says, excellent. I've never heard of any astronomers seeing the tracks on the moon. I know I can't with my P1. No, nobody can. But again, if you believe the article I read, then it's easy. You can do it for yourself. Way to go, India. Yeah. Wide Awake, no moon landing. Yeah. Everybody check out Wide Awake's channel. Very easy to click him in the chat if you see him. Some of the best observational stuff I've seen and really helped me in my coming to find the truth. 20 minutes ago. Oh, you got home 20 minutes ago. Yeah, thank you, Glowbuster. Bob translates for me. Thank you. You've learned it a little better than I have. The great thing about Eru does something that not a lot of people do. Whenever he wants to talk to me on Skype, he usually, thanks, Bob. He usually leaves me a voice message, which is a lot easier to understand because sometimes our chat messages go back and forth and don't make a lot of sense. And I think I try and shorten the way I say things, which also doesn't help much, right? So anyway, I'm just reading the chat. If anybody's watching this that thinks they're going to get more, you don't need to stay tuned in unless you want to see me just kind of read the chat and have some fun. No problem, Wide Awake. Yeah, great stuff on your channel. I won't read some of that. That's pretty funny. Good stuff, though. Heavy Metal Unicorn says, great show as always. Thank you. Appreciate that.